Attention bobsled riders! You will soon be embarking on a thrilling podcast down the icy slopes of the Matterhorn. So please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the bobsled at all times. Auf Wiedersehen!
Hello, Yodlers. We are the Matterhorn Yodlers. I'm your host today, Jackie, and we have...
J-Fifth.
And...
I'm Max. I was wondering if you're going to be Ralph or you're going to be Max.
Right?
And today, Peter picked a movie for us to watch.
That's right.
And to discuss.
I decided not to pick a movie that I hold on to my heart so that you guys don't rip it to
Let us
shreds.
destroy your childhood. Instead, I'm destroying my childhood because I really liked this movie when I was a kid.
The movie is Flight of the Navigator. It came out in 1986. There wasn't, this was a big movie when it came out. Or this was the big Disney movie.
It was like a summer blockbuster film.
Yeah, because I tried to look at other movies and there wasn't really... I think Footloose was one, so...
Only the greatest film ever. Sorry, I've been watching The Avengers.
Or
that
no,
one.
it was Ferris Bueller.
Ferris Bueller,
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Flight of the Navigator. I had never seen this movie before.
I
never even heard of it.
I loved the film as a kid.
I growing up, I remember watching it a couple times, but I didn't really have memories of it. I remember the spaceship. I remember seeing the spaceship at Disney World because they had it there.
And the backlog tour.
Yes.
Which is still technically, it's still there on Disney property and visible. We'll talk about that.
Oh,
We'll
yeah,
get to
it's in a
that.
restaurant, isn't it now? Or the
No,
shell is?
It's in Tomorrowland right now.
Okay, that's what I
at
thought.
Disney
It's like at
World.
a restaurant.
Yeah. No,
Oh.
it's not. It's right outside, right in the open.
Oh, well.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. So this is a big sci-fi movie. And
You can definitely tell with the music. My goodness.
JP, why don't you go with this summary real quick for our
Well, I've
viewers?
got different steps
Yeah,
to the movie,
yeah.
but in synopsis of this, it's a kid is basically abducted
Yep.
by a spaceship probe, and he's dropped off 8 years later.
Yeah.
And then there's this debacle of NASA wants him, and the
he
parents
didn't
are
grow
he
in
didn't grow,
age.
yeah,
So
because of the
he's-
space time, with going the speed of light, time slows down,
Yeah.
and so that's how they could explain he's been gone for 8 years here, but he was only gone 2 hours or 4 hours.
Something like that.
And so 2.5 to Phelan, and then 2.5 back. So, yes, the movie takes place in Fort Lauderdale with a bunch of dogs catching frisbees.
Right. Well, the thing
The
I thought
opening was so...
Forever.
the funny thing
Weird.
about this movie was the movie totally was acknowledging the fact that they knew the audience knew this was an alien movie, so they kept having these oh, it's a flying saucer moment 4 or 5 times.
Oh, the
Frisbees,
Goodyear blimp, the
yeah.
frisbees,
The frisbee and
the lights in the woods.
right. And so they kept having these fake out moments for the audience being oh, it's the spaceship. Now is the spaceship. No, fake out.
It kind of reminds me of the movie Signs, when everyone
Yeah.
was all
Right.
the aliens, is that it? And then you get this blurry picture of at our birthday party in Mexico, and the aliens just walking across the
Right.
bath, and it looks like the kind of Sasquatch picture.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole intro with the dogs, I was just is this a dog movie? Because, I'd never seen this movie before, so I was what in the world?
Yeah, so it starts off that you're introduced to David, his little brother, and his family.
His little brother's a little turd.
They
He was
are.
a little turd to him.
It was the 80s,
Yeah.
as Bluey
It's
says.
the 80s, man.
You could do that. You could just jump out of your car and just play in the woods with fireworks and sparklers. And you're you know what? He's only 2, or he's only 5.
Yeah.
It takes place Fort Lauderdale. David is asked to get his brother, who's been playing in the woods. His brother scares him, and then on his way back, he falls into a ditch,
ditch.
like a large ditch.
Yeah.
his dog leaves him. Boy, he can't catch a frisbee and he can't like save him. Like, and then the next thing we know is the clamshell Max crashed into an electrical tower, and the ship is taken to NASA. David's taken to the hospital. Or David goes to his house, and his parents aren't there.
That was so like scary. I felt bad for him.
I literally started to cry at the moment where they're
Like as
like,
an adult or as a kid?
as an adult
Okay.
watching this again, watching this little kid being like, I want my mom, and I can like, because my kid is around that age, and so
Yeah.
like I can totally visualize my kid and feel his emotion.
And
right
there's
there. And
every
so
kid's
it's
been
like,
lost
oh.
once, and like that fear of like abandonment and like
yeah.
Well, like at that moment when like he like gave up, he kind of like curled up on the floor, and like I was just like, oh my gosh, not this movie. Come on, not Flight of the Navigator. Am I gonna be crying?
yeah, like he goes to his childhood home. His parents are no longer there. Police are called. He's taken to the police station. They look through the records, and he's wearing the exact same thing. And
As
they're like,
the
he's
missing
fitting.
report.
Yeah, he's fitting all the wickets to the missing kid report.
That happened 8 years ago.
8 years ago, he has not aged. And they're asking questions like, "Who's the president?" And he's like, "Duh, Jimmy Carter." And they're
Like, why are
like,
you asking me all these questions?
right, yeah. So he is, his brain is only 4 hours old, as opposed to the rest of the world's gone 8 years ahead.
Right.
And so he's taken to the hospital, or no, his parents see him, and
Yeah.
then they meet him at the
Yeah.
Because they want to see.
yeah, they go to
what's
the
going
house,
on.
and then they're like, "We need to take him to the hospital. He's acting kind of weird." And then they
Well,
start,
the fact that he hasn't grown for 8
Yeah.
years. You're like, yeah, let's
"Where have you been, kid? What are you talking about? I just fell in a ravine. I just got sleepy in the woods." Like,
and the kid's like, you guys look weird.
yeah. I mean, your parents, his
They're
dad's,
old.
he's got some gray, and
balding.
The mom looks so different. too.
I questioned. I was like, "Is that the same mom?"
Yeah. It made
Did we
me
lose money? We're
question.
like,
I was like,
you
did
can leave.
mom get divorced and this is a new person?
I'm your stepmom.
Oh god.
Where's my real mom? It's like Back to the Future 2. My dad's dead. Biff killed my dad. So, yeah, he goes and gets tested in this like psych. I don't know. It seems like a psych person is evaluating him, and it's like this weird room where it's like, we have these pieces of furniture in this oversized room to make you feel comfortable, but there's only like 3 pieces of furniture in the middle. And then like they've got him all strapped up to some brainwaves, and they're like, "Where have you been?" And then like his brain starts printing off a 3-dimensional clamshell, and they're like, "Hey NASA, this kid's being weird."
Right.
And so NASA's like, "What kind of clamshell?" "Speak to me. I have one right here." And that's when NASA comes in, right?
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, just trust us. We only need your kid for two
two
days."
And this, I would think, would be bad parenting negotiations.
I trust NASA.
Well, the parent. So first of all, the parent didn't want to take the kid.
No, they're like, no. He's cool. He's with us.
Like,
He's back.
He's back.
Even though it's kind of weird, like the older brothers. It's like the blip in Marvel.
Right.
And I was like,
It's
because I
very
just
much
watched
like
that
that.
recently with Spider-Man, and I'm just like, oh, this is very blippish.
Yes,
Everyone's
very
grown
much.
up, and you didn't, and you have to adjust to this new world.
But like also from a parent's like point of view is like I feel like in your eyes like your child like you will always like want that little like you always know them at that
You don't want to
age.
lose the years that you had.
Yeah.
You lost them, but you get that chance to watch them grow up.
right.
Even though it's gotta be super weird. You're like, my kid's here, and he didn't grow. Like, do you resist medicine going like, what's going on? You're like, NASA has a good prestigious, like it's probably one of the more trustworthy
Of the
agencies.
Right.
If it was like the FBI, I'd be like, nah, man, you're coming, like, like, where are you going to put my kid? Don't worry, we got this bunker. He'll be
Right.
safe there.
Right. No, I mean, the only thing I have with the parents is like, I would have been negotiating like, well, we're gonna be there with him.
I want to be with him. He needs
Yeah.
family, not isolation.
Yeah, we're just gonna let you take care of him. I'd be like, I lost him for 8 years. He's not leaving my sight.
Right. That was kind of mine. I was all like, and the parents didn't negotiate here. Like,
That's where Disney's saying, like, don't, you lose your kid, don't let him out of your sight again.
Right.
Because shenanigans are going to take place. So, yeah, negotiated for 48 hours. He can call anytime. Gets dropped off in this room with the, like, oh, we've got this fancy mirror right here where we can observe him. And they're like, oh, we locked the door. And they're like, I love when he gets his first phone call, like, they locked me in the door. It's for his safety. We don't want him walking around a facility. You
right.
know? It's for him to feel safe. And then he's introduced to Ralph, the food processor
Right.
robot.
It's a big box, basically.
Yeah. And he's freaked out. I mean,
I would be freaked out if a giant robot machine came out and started giving me food.
yeah.
Like, that's something we still don't really see.
He requested a Big Mac and he never got a Big Mac?
That's true. But that's after he was meeting with Sarah Jessica Parker's character, Carolyn.
Oh,
That was the
yes.
Yeah, it's the one where you're like, oh, she's in this movie?
Right.
Oh, my goodness. I always remembered her being in there. So, like, when she, were in other movies 10, 15 years later, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the girl from the Flight of the Navigator. Yeah, they have that conversation of, like, pop culture.
I want to go to a Comic-Con and just be like, I loved you in Flight of the Navigator. And they'll be like, okay.
You got all these Sex in the City, like, super fans. You're like, nah.
Flight of the Navigator.
Flight of the Navigator. It's like if I went to, like, meet R.L. Stein and everyone's a Goosebump fan, and I'm like, I loved Choose Your Fate with Indiana Jones before Goosebump. They're like, oh, cool. Well, you're one of those fans. Like, okay. Yeah, I love the pop culture, like, what is this? And, like, oh, it's a music video. And they've got the strangest music video where, like, this guy's arms getting, like, wiggled out.
They didn't have music videos 8 years ago?
No. MTV was early 80s, but it was, like, when it came out, it was the teenage pop culture thing. Yeah, if they had anything, I imagine it was just, like, concert shows. There were, like, a lot of variety shows in the 70s. So it was kind of fun for Sarah Jessica Parker to bring in the pop culture reference, and they're like, yeah, I was at a concert. And you're like, I was at the Bee Gees,
Right.
My mom took me. And she's like, yeah, I'm a Twisted Sister, like, and anybody knows Twisted Sister, it's just like, it is the opposite of what a Bee Gee is.
Yes.
So, yeah, it was funny how the Carolyn was like, you're weird. And it's like, you're the one with purple hair. And she's like, I was at a concert last night. Like,
I do like his response to things. Like, you would think, being gone and, like, he's in a strange place that, like, he'd be like,
crying all the time.
Quiet, reserved, like, silent, like, I don't know what's going on.
He's a smart kid.
But he's smart, and he's just like, he is like, has the attitude, and
He's an introvert. What is that? Extrovert.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
an extrovert. So he feeds off of other people.
I agree. Yeah, he was smart, and he was probably one of the he was probably the strongest character
In the movie.
yeah.
Agreed.
Well, he was. I hope so. He's the main character.
Sometimes that's not the case.
It's true. It's not always the case.
I think so David has some NASA tests, and they hook him up again, and they start asking him questions, and, like, this weird language, just like cryptology, like hieroglyphic kind of language pops up on the screen, and NASA's like, I don't know that. And they're like, where were you? And they're like, start showing all these star charts, and they're like, we don't have that. And they're amazed in, like, what his brain has and where he's been. You find out he was in Phalon, the planet, which 560 light years away, and it's 2.5 hours. So, and somebody, like, some of the gaff people were just like, technically you could only get to with 2.5 hours, you can only get to a star system 4.5 light years. And so it was.
This is a children's sci-fi movie.
Definitely.
In
And-
the early 80s.
Yeah.
We can give it some leeway on this.
No, it's about the science. We're misleading our youth with false math of light speed. So yeah, the NASA goes like, well, this kid's got everything, and we want it, and he freaks out, and he runs to his room.
What I don't get, there's like the one scene where he's hooked up to all the machines and like they're communicating and they're like all these people in this like computer room and the kid is like freaking out like what's going on? Why is
No one's
it doing-
communicating with
no one's
them.
communicating and I'm just like why don't they observe him like in another room and then have the
They're all
computer-
freaking out like, oh my gosh, these aliens are gonna kill us. They're like, what? Yeah, like
I was just like there was a bad part on the side. It's like
There's
they're
a lot of faults with this government agency that's handled this whole operation.
I was like, why are you
This
exposing
isn't
this
the only
kid?
problem that they've had with this movie.
Yeah, and so the kid freaks out, and NASA's like, yeah, we're gonna need more than 48 hours. Did anybody else see that coming?
Right.
But Carolyn, she goes, that's not right, you know. And so she uses Ralph to get the kid to escape after David starts communicating with the ship.
Yeah.
It's like, David, it is Max. Come to the ship. The
Help
kid's like,
me.
help me, I'm dying. I need you. Like, the kid's already got, like, the weirdest day, and now he's telecommunicating with
A spaceship.
a spaceship that he doesn't even know looks like, but the voices in his head's like, escape. Come find me. And he's like, all right, let's
All
do
right,
it.
I'm just gonna go jump in this robot dog. You
Yeah.
know?
It's like, get into Ralph. The food robot? Yeah, let's get in there.
That's why I'm.
And then
curious.
nobody questions it. She's like, "Yep, robot dog can come right into
We're all
any
good."
secured building.
Yeah. It's
We're not gonna investigate, look into it, make sure there's nothing wrong with.
There's
the
no
situation.
security,
There's no-
like.
So
Yeah.
the security guard just looks at it and be like, "Dinner time."
He's like, you'll get your dinner later, dog. Dog's going like, there's a boy in there.
I know, right? The dog's all freaking out. It's like, no, I believe government dogs are usually trained not to react to food like that.
It was one of those like, stupid dog. It's just food.
Right.
David's like, whoa, I survived. If it was his dog Bouncer or Baxter, I don't remember what it was, like a B, a Bruiser.
Bruiser.
Yeah, boy, that dog would have been like, yeah, who cares? He's not a very good dog.
No, he's not a good dog.
So, yes, he escapes. He gets to the ship. He gets in the ship. It was, I thought the inside of that ship was the coolest. Like
Oh yeah.
you were a kid and you're like, I would go on that spaceship. That's cool.
Absolutely.
It's metallic looking. He meets Max, the I don't know, the AI
Yeah.
of the probe ship.
It looks like the steering wheel and Wall-E.
Yeah.
He looks like
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they probably inspired it of some
Probably.
sort. Yeah, the he gets in the ship and then they escape. And then basically the next 20 minutes is him flying around. You get the flight of the Navigator because the ship needs David because he has the star charts in his brain. What was it?
that. They use the science of humans only use 10% of their brain.
So they're using us for storage.
Yeah. So that's what they did. They filled David up with 90% of star charts and
Yeah. You want to hear something creepy? It's like some guy from this is a tangent. Sorry, I'm tangenting. We're on aliens, and this guy who worked at Area 51, he's like, yeah, we've talked to the aliens, and they just look at us humans as just storage units, for souls. And I'm like, boy, it was like Flight on the Navigator. He's like, you're gonna be my glove box. You're gonna hold my
Yeah.
maps
Yeah.
because you are what was it? I forgot. Unintelligent. Like species or an inferior species. That's what
Right.
he called them. And we are a superior technology or something like that. I started thinking of the Moonanites. We are the
We are
Moonanites.
the Moonanites. Yeah.
Just less middle fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, so we fly around and they, getting to know
There
you
was
kind
a
of.
lot of flying around.
Well, you have to fly.
It's the
It's the flight of the Navigator.
flight of the Navigator, and
But
that's what
it,
David
like,
is. He is the Navigator.
It was a little boring.
Well, I mean, you got to picture it from David's mind, where he's like, "I'm flying a spaceship," like.
That was kind of cool. He's all like, "Let me fly
It's
now."
all like that was kind of cool, the way the ship, how he controlled the ship, like that was kind of like a cool way to fly a ship. It wasn't just like a joystick.
You have to watch. And I watched the first time I watched this. I watched it as an adult, critiquing a movie as like that I loved as a kid, and I was like, "This movie's stupid."
Right.
And then I watched it going like, "What's this like? What did I like about it as a kid? What would I, And that's what this scene is. Everything a kid wants. He's in control.
Right.
No parents. He's in charge of a spaceship and he's flying everywhere and having fun. That was, and I go, that part was probably the coolest part as a kid because you're no longer scared, you're free, and you've got an alien spaceship.
Right.
And you stop thinking about like, oh, I'm 8 years.
The logic and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. Like,
It was, and that's what's fun
Were
about
your
it.
kids in the room when you were watching this?
No.
I was wondering if your kids were gonna watch it with you because I
No,
was about
this-
your second
I
oldest child.
watched this. I couldn't sleep at night, so I watched it about 3:00 in the morning. So
Oh.
that's what I
old
did.
man hours.
Yep.
You wake up at 3 and
like,
you're like, let's watch
"Ah."
TV.
I'm gonna watch I gotta watch this movie. So
So yeah, they fly around and then they're like, oh, we need to get back, and so they make it back to Fort Lauderdale. What? NASA's waiting for them.
I know.
They want their spaceship.
what?
Yeah.
The logic was like, I just want to go home, and it's just like, but it's from a kid's point of view, which
Exactly.
I get. It's like,
I want to go home.
I just want to go home. I just want to be with my family.
And they get in communication with the younger brother who's older, who still has all the fireworks that his brother had.
Right.
Yeah.
And fireworks don't go bad after 8 years. There's no expiration. I don't know anything about fireworks, but it's one of those like, all right, I'm gonna take this
you could
explosive.
tell they didn't go off very well.
Well, some did.
Some
shot
did, but,
up
like,
really
when
high.
They used
Some
that
of
to
them did.
signal to David, like, hey, this is where we live.
Right.
And then they show up and they're like, whoa, NASA's here waiting for us. This isn't my time. All right, I need to go.
I did like that point of view of like, I don't know where we live.
Right.
And it was like such like a kid response of like, give me a sign or something. And because kids at that age, they don't know where they like live. Like,
No, I'm trying to teach my daughter who's 4. I'm all like using big features like, see that is that mountain right there. We live by this mountain. And then I always be like, every day we drive by, like, what mountain do we live by? And it's just like that one. I'm like, good. We're
Always.
recognizing landmarks.
Yeah, there's a certain point I always ask my kids to direct me home.
Ooh, that's
from
good.
Certain points, I'd be like, okay, what direction? Like, tell me when to turn. Where do I go? And they'll guide me home. That's how I got around teaching.
I'd be like, I'd ask your oldest, be like, hey, get on the roof and shoot some fireworks, and I'll it is so. Oh no, NASA's there waiting for us. So yeah, then you get the response of like, all right, take me back to my time. They're like, but we could be vaporized, and that was kind of cool, like the graphics, knowing it from like the 80s. Because
Hey,
I mean, like, I think
it's-
Tron was like only a few years before,
Took
and
me
that was
ba-
groundbreaking.
Took me back to Black Hole. I was thinking Black Hole there.
I
for
had
a
Black Hole
moment.
vibes too. Like, so yeah, Black Hole was so influential in the sci-fi portion of Jackie was rolling. Like, no, please stop.
We're not talking about Black Hole again.
Dumb black hole.
It got ranked better than Into the Woods.
Oh, but they make it back. David wakes up in the woods, and you're going, was it all a dream?
Right.
Yeah.
It was
I
like you get that,
afraid
you're
of
like,
that.
oh, it was just a dream. You got us, Disney. It
But it
wasn't,
wasn't.
but it
wasn't.
Was
wasn't.
this a Smallville episode?
Right, yeah. And you get the little like
The
Muppet
little-
alien, you know,
Yeah.
the little misfit that gets picked up,
It
and
was cute.
that
The
was cute.
The little alien friend is cute.
And he makes it back this time, and he gets to go on the boat with his family and celebrate the 4th of July as if he had just taken a nap in the woods. You know, because we just let kids sleep in the woods. And Florida, it's like, aren't there like, there's gators and
Snakes.
there's giant python snakes.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm like, I don't remember
It was
a
the
jungle.
80s.
I don't remember the jungle
It's
in
the 80s,
Florida.
man. It was
You
the
can get away with
80s.
anything.
It does show you like the difference of like what it is, you know, like now as a kid, like kid be like, oh, there's my friends, I'm gonna drop me off. Like, no,
No.
they got sparklers. You don't play with fire, all right?
Right.
Yeah, different times.
Well, it was like the late 70s too.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
78,
Yeah,
you know, but it was, you know,
the beginning. Yeah.
I mean that the parents are, the culture was like, hey, go out and play, leave me
Right.
alone. You know, I don't need to
Yes.
keep you entertained. You keep yourself entertained. You know, I think I saw like a TikTok where somebody goes, Generation X, we were just like, my dad and my uncle would be building something in the house and we were just told like, don't get in the way. And you just
Yeah.
see the kids climbing on ladders and like, you know, playing with tools. And we're like, oh no, I can't do anything with my kids around.
Nope.
No, don't trust them. So yeah, there is a certain, you know, it's fun to watch it from that perspective of like how America
Right.
was in that time period.
and how much it's changed.
How much has changed now because of just the information we have now.
It's the same vibe you get when you watch like Stranger Things. You know, when you watch that, and
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, we're just gone all day, and our parents don't even care.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I kind of had that as a kid,
little
where
bit.
I would,
A little bit.
you know,
I had it too early on.
yeah.
I
There's
would say.
as long as you stayed within the block. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. You just left one time, and then you were like at another block, and I had to like drive around with my learner's permit to go find you, and then like
don't remember
I got
that.
grounded longer than all of you guys did. Peter was supposed to watch you, and you got grounded for like 3 days. Peter's like 4 days, and I got grounded for 2 weeks, and I'm like, I wasn't even in charge. I saved the day, and you're like,
How did that make you feel?
Oh, it was one of those like, what? I don't get your logic. And mom, dad, like, yeah, sometimes you screw up. It's like, but I didn't. So yeah, you know, it was a different time, and you know, it was, the movie was more pleasurable watching it from the perspective of a kid.
Right.
Again, and how would a kid react to watching this? But as an adult, the first time watching it for this review, I was like, this movie,
It's slow.
it's slow.
It's so slow.
You don't even get to
It's
the
like a
flight of the
TV show from the
Navigator.
90s, and I'm like, oh goodness.
You don't actually get to the flight of the Navigator to about halfway through the movie.
Honestly, the movie was giving Disney Channel vibes. Early Disney Channel movie vibes. But
when it was still decent.
Yeah, it was like decent, but like it was giving that vibe where it just wasn't the main character wasn't that interesting. The other characters,
It's a boy movie for sure.
Yeah, but like a boy movie can still have interesting characters.
Of course.
I had no emotional like.
Come on, he was
attachment.
peeping at his girly like through
That's
a
right.
telescope.
That's
Oh,
right.
that comes like, oh, you do have a crush on Jennifer. Let's not address that you're watching her from afar. Jennifer, I love you.
It was the 80s, man.
That's the 80s, man.
It was 70s.
It was the 78. You could do that. You know, like Back to the Future, the peeping Tom on top of the, what were you doing,
we
George?
gotta
I was watching birds.
We gotta start the creepers early.
Yeah. It's funny. You know, this is what's going on. That's okay. All right. Totally normal. Here, let me get your box of fireworks that you have in your room. I'm like, oh my gosh. I got in trouble for like having a match. And like,
Right.
so, there was not a lot of interesting facts about it. Just a lot of like, one scene, Jennifer Parker's character Carolyn has her arm up, and then when we change the scene, her hand is right next to the light, even though she hasn't moved. So it's like, oh, okay, misplaced hand.
Like, the only two characters I would say that were the most interesting was probably like Sarah Jessica Parker, but she was so like brief, like so minimal. And then the Navigator or the
David,
The spaceship?
or the spaceship, Max. Yeah, I didn't get into it. Max, you know, scans David for his, you know, plans. They do kind of a transaction, like, you take me home, you can have what's in my head. And they're like, okay. And then, you know, Max, you know, gets his personality. So start getting this goofy Pee Wee Herman,
Yeah.
who Paul Rubin did voice.
yes.
Because he starts laughing like Pee Wee Herman. Exactly, yes. And yeah, even Paul Rubin did not even have his name attached to it. He had like another name. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know about this movie.
I thought it was just a person imitating Paul Rubin.
No, it was him.
It was him.
So yeah, that was That it was. For me, it was
like-
like, was he helping the movie or was he distracting from the movie? And that's why I'm like conflict. It's like,
I think
did I need him in there?
as an adult, no, you don't need him in there.
But Pee Wee Herman was awesome back then
Right.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
So that was it was interesting. You just didn't know how to handle that. But I knew it was Pee Wee Herman beforehand as a kid, because when I saw this movie, I was like 5 or 6. Because when we went to Disney World, I was 7, and I remember going the backlog tour, and I'm going, that is the ship from the flight of the Navigator, which I thought was so cool.
Right. So yeah, we briefly talked about this. So that there was 2 of them. There was 2. One with the door open, and then there was one with the door closed. So there was 2 different spaceships. They both were at Hollywood Studios in the backlot tour. One of them got destroyed because it wasn't taken care of, and then the other one was converted into a different spaceship. So they kind of they put a new shell over it, and it's over like the Mister. It's that giant bulbous spaceship that has the Mister's like the cool spot or whatever.
Like where you can get a drink.
Where you get like
and
Coke
a hot
products.
dog,
Stuff.
Yeah.
So like that is the Flight of the Navigator ship.
Oh, interesting.
Even though
it was
it doesn't
repurposed.
it doesn't
that.
look like the Flight of the Navigator ship, but it is the same
It
ship.
would almost be better if it did look like
I
it.
agree. I think more people would be more drawn to it if it was.
Because it's more sci-fi, and the paint job they did on it was not good.
Right. It's just typical fake sci-fi spaceship look.
Yeah.
1996 Tomorrowland vibe.
Yeah. Very much.
Where were we at? That was, and then there were other goofs about the movie. Is his hair while he's navigating grows,
Right.
it gets puffy, it gets flat, throughout the different scenes. I try to watch that. I'm like, yeah, a little bit here and there.
I think the best scenes. I love the scene where like he goes to the gas station.
Yeah, Big Al's.
Big Al's gas station.
that was fun.
That was a.
Do you see the kid wearing the Epcot shirt?
Yes. Oh yeah. Of course
Yeah,
I saw
so
that.
they're trying to get directions.
Yeah.
And so he's getting a map.
He's like, your other tour scene's not going to get much, but this spaceship's great. And Big Al's like, in shock.
He's like, the spaceship just landed in front of my gas station.
And the guy's like, yeah, kids, go play around it.
Don't go inside. I doubt they have good insurance if something goes wrong. And I was like, that's a dad thinking.
That is a
He's
way
thinking
dad.
of the legal implications of how his kids can get hurt
Yep.
and not get compensated for it. I was like, that's when you know you're an adult. When you start thinking, when you do
What's the
something, you're like, how much
insurance?
would this cost me if it goes wrong?
Right.
So that was kind of fun to see that as a dad. I'm like, oh, I think that's a funny joke right there.
I thought that was a great scene.
Did you guys like the music?
No.
The music made scenes that are supposed to be mysterious, like it enhanced it,
Yes.
and it kind of got me more into the movie.
It was.
It
Was
was
it
okay.
cheesy? Was it cheesy?
It
but
was cheesy.
But like, imagine the movie without that first half of the music. It would have been like, goodness gracious, this is horrible. But with that music, you knew like I'm watching a sci-fi film. Like
Yes.
there was no doubt. Like that is like X-File vibes.
Very much.
Yeah.
Even though X-Files wasn't even out then, but it just had that mysterious, like, this is strange, this is beyond this world. So I thought it helped in the beginning. I didn't really think about it too much when he's flying around. I was more fascinated with like the scenes and just flying as a kid around, especially like Peter said, the bulb control pads.
Right. It made it look more fun as a kid to like reenact it.
Yeah.
Like I could totally see myself.
They made like a movie, like game, like a ride, like simulator.
Yeah.
That would be awesome as a kid.
That would be really cool.
Missed opportunity Disney had.
Yeah, they were too busy with Epcot's like, let's talk about World of Tomorrow.
I was like,
know, who
when I
likes
was
that
watching
stuff?
this movie, I was like, oh, this gives early Epcot vibes. And I was like, no wonder why Peter picked it.
No, I mean it was
No,
just a movie that we were exposed to young as a
Right.
kid. And I think Peter wanted to get our opinions on like something.
Did it hold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like does this movie hold up? Would you say this movie would be due for a reboot or a
They
remake?
actually like announced that they were. So the girl that played like the redhead from the new Jurassic World movies,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
she was slated to be the director, and they announced it in 2021. but like no script has come forward. Basically, like this is when Disney Plus like we're coming out, we're throwing lots of money, and
then
like
things got
things are like
scrapped.
where's this script? I don't think it's gonna happen.
Right.
I just don't.
I think it could like if they did a good job. Yeah, I think the remake would actually be pretty successful.
It's tough because it's like, what's the audience for it? Are kids a big enough audience for sci-fi? Like, how many kids, like, without it being Star Wars? You know, it's tough. The
it would
movie
be a
industry
hard
is,
sell.
but it would be
a
on
hard
Disney
sell.
Plus,
It
and
would
that's
be
what they're
on
trying.
Disney Plus.
But would it be well? Like, would it do well on Disney Plus?
Right.
I don't think
I
so.
don't
Because it
know.
probably wouldn't get the budget it needs.
It would get decom budget. That's what it would get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be low, and I don't think it would do it a service. I think it's fine just leaving it where it is. I as an adult, I just don't care for it. I will
Yeah.
never watch this movie again.
Same.
My daughter was watching it and she was all like, "Woo, toy!" and she went off somewhere else and played. So it didn't catch her.
I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching this movie, I paused it to do something, watch something on my phone, and then I went back to finish the movie.
I need to death scroll on TikTok before it goes away. Yeah, I don't think very highly of it. But as a kid, I can see why I liked it and how it could be very interesting to kids of that time period. But with how much media and kids are exposed to, kids
It
are
doesn't
exposed
hold
to
up.
a different type of humor
Yeah.
and music, and this I don't think they'll want to. They can't
Well,
sit through it.
And I agree that, like, I think right now, like, yeah, the movie as it stands right now, it falters in its cultural references.
Yeah.
You know, it's clearly a project of its time.
Yes.
And so that's why I asked about, would there be a chance that this might be more successful?
Could they make a modern
if
day?
they made a modern day one? Could there be enough story that, that might be worth telling? Because I think there was a lot that was left out, especially on the alien side, in terms of like what they're doing.
It just seemed like we're a probe, and I think that they didn't want to open that can of worm. Like maybe if they come out Flight of the Navigator, they've come to destroy you, and David saves the day. Then I'll be like, whoa, all right.
Yeah.
You took this like kid like woohoo sci-fi to like Independence Day
Yeah.
type
Oh
of
my
like
gosh, that would
invasion.
be
And I'll be
entertaining.
like, I'll watch that film. You're like, all cutesy, and like David's up there with a laser, like, come on, Iron Man, get him, like across, hey, Robert Downey Jr. said like, yeah, I'm down, like let's
Right.
just throw Iron Man in there, say it's another universe, and like then we can have Flight of the Navigator versus Iron Man. All right, Jackie, what do you give this movie, Mickey Bars?
I give it a 1.
Whoa.
I just did not enjoy it. It was boring.
Is there a movie worse than this?
Uh,
Like
That
a
we
Disney
have
movie
reviewed?
that is worse, like that you could think of that you're like, that
yes, there are. There's this one that's also sci-fi and it compares to it. But it was like a Disney Channel one, but it was like aliens.
Xenon?
No.
Xenon the sequel.
The sequel, yeah, I like
It
that. They
was
did that.
like something about cats. No, it wasn't that one.
the alien, the cat one where the cat's from outer space.
No, it wasn't
That
that
one was really bad. Oh, my mom was abducted.
Oh, Mars Needs Moms.
Marcy's moms.
Mars
Yeah,
Needs Moms.
that
Yeah,
was
that's a bad one.
I'm trying to find it now.
We got to review that one.
He's like, can we not watch really bad sci-fi films?
No, this one was so bad.
Because I know you're going in
Oh, you got,
alphabetical
like,
order.
John Carter.
No, John Carter wasn't that bad.
I haven't actually. I never saw that.
It's
one.
not bad. It's just not. It's like watching Jules Verne's films.
Right.
You're just like, I've seen this. Everything's been based off this. Star Wars is based off John Carter and
Right.
other aspects of it. So it's been overdone.
I'm trying to find it. Disney Plus changed their filtering, and I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, they infused
Oh.
Hulu on there if you've got
It's
both.
annoying.
And you're
It's
like,
so
I don't
bad.
know.
I wish they like had a separate space for
Yes.
the Hulu stuff.
Because it's mixed in, and
And so like when I'm like, oh, what's new on Disney Plus, and it's all this,
American
like-
Horror Story, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
I love how it's like that's the title like ad that it's like.
and there's no like
okay.
there's a kid section, but like it's like super like Kid Junior, super filtered, and like Snow White's not even on it.
Right.
I mean, there's some scary logs that look like alligators. All right, Peter, while she's looking,
Yeah.
what do you give this movie?
Man, it's probably a 1.5 for me.
Yeah.
It was it's not one of
It
those
felt like a chore to watch it.
I wouldn't say it felt like a chore. It was more like, okay, that was something, and I'm not really going to give it much thought after that. Is it? I would say it's worth to watch just for the sake of watching it. I think it's
If you're a Disney fan that wants to watch some old
right.
movies,
I think it's a solid pick.
yeah.
But is it a movie that has substance that makes me want to come back and be like, I want to deep analyze this? No, not really.
It's very shallow in
It is.
its story. Gets you to point A to point B of like, what happened to David? What's the spaceship?
Right.
And they explain it, and that's it. It's over. There's really very little mystery to it, besides of like, what's the intention of the aliens
Right.
probing. Yeah, I give it a 2. I think there's a lot of nostalgia there.
Right.
I don't think it's horrible. I've seen
Right.
some really bad Disney movies.
Like it's getting a low mark not because like it's the worst movie in the world. It's getting a low mark because it's not rewatchable.
No, it's
It-
just,
yeah, I'd
it's
never-
kind of boring. It's just boring.
As an adult, it's boring, and I don't know how kids would respond to it with like their current sense of humor and their attention span to get to the point where it's fun kid movie.
Well, again, it's pop culture references that even most adults now would be like, I don't get that.
Bee Gees, Twisted Sister,
What was the movie the show he wanted to watch?
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky
it
and
was
Hutch,
it was
yeah.
canceled.
Right. And
He's
Oh,
like, that's
yeah.
my favorite
Starsky and
show.
Hutch? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I've never heard of the shows, and
Yeah, they made a movie with
They did,
Ben
like,
Stiller,
They made a
and
comedy movie, yeah.
it was bad.
And Owen
Wilson.
Wow.
Wow, bad movie.
I can't find the movie title that was worse than this movie. But
I have to say this is probably the worst movie we've reviewed, and
That
in
we've all
consensus that we've
agreed.
all agreed. If we had to ask, like, would you watch Black Hole or would you watch
I would rather watch Black
Or
Hole
Flight of the
because
Navigator.
It's entertaining to watch the train wreck.
to just? Yes, I agree.
I don't
Is it
know.
much
This
better
one- this
story?
one's-
Not much better story. I
Not
think the
much-
Flight of the Navigator has a better story
Right.
in comparison
Yes.
to Black Hole, but Black Hole is certainly more entertaining, like a train
Because the whole
crashing
time you're
and
just
blowing
like,
up.
what's going on?
Right. Even like you can watch that movie like 7 times and be like, I still don't know what's going on with this thing.
Maxis, help me! He's trying to kill me.
Kill me. Wait, what?
Aren't you the one in charge? So yeah, Black Hole seems to be a more favorable film,
Barely.
But not because it's better.
not because it's better,
but
just
because it's worse.
It's more fun
It's
to
a better
review.
worse. It's a better worse.
It's
Yes.
more fun to review than this one. I was like
It's-
watching this movie and I was like, how am I going to review this? It's just boring.
And sometimes you have to hit
Yep.
the lows, and you got to think like there. You know, you have Honey that Shrunk the Kids that comes out shortly after.
Sure.
You know, like a couple years, and then you get like the Rocketeer.
Yeah.
You know, so
and
there's
these
there's
are like the building steps that led into some of those movies.
yes, you know, it's like getting the Chicken Little, right, or is it Chicken Run? I can't-
Chicken Little.
Chicken Little, and then you get like Meet the Robinsons.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start getting better Disney stories.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
this is that time period where Disney's trying to figure out their identity post 70s.
Well, and you also
you know,
got to
kinda-
keep in mind this was the transition period as well for the Disney company
Yeah.
as well with
Eisner.
we transition into Eisner, and Eisner's trying to figure out, like, how do I make money? Because we're not making money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be open to seeing a remake, but if they don't, it's a movie I will forget and live a happy life.
So when you see it, now you know what it's about, based off this podcast. Any last thoughts?
No, not really. It's just a okay movie. It's very
I
forgettable.
know we're selling it really well to go watch this movie, but if you
it's worth watching once if you like those sort of 80s sci-fi movies
and put away things, you can have it on in the background.
Yeah.
It's yeah, if you're into if you like 80s sci-fi, there's nothing wrong with this movie.
If you like early Epcot.
Shots fired. Shots fired. All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of the review of the Flight of the Navigator. When I was watching that spaceship, I kept thinking, like, that's cool looking. Now I want clam chowder. No. Let us know if you've seen the film as a kid or if you've seen it as an adult too. What your thoughts are on the film. Does it hold up to you? Is it, is nostalgia holding up? Yes. Let us know on our social medias. And with that being said, Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Matterhorn Yodelers. Please remember, before your bobsled comes to a complete stop, to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember...
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.